You know, we asked our congregation to paint or draw or create or take a picture of palm leaves as a reminder of this week. And so midweek, we as a family decided that we were going to put something together, and the kids are sitting around at the dinner table and said, you know, we have a project we're going to do later. We've been trying to come up with new things to keep them excited and energized. And immediately my son goes, oh no. And I said, well, you don't even know what it is. He says, we're going to have to do something for Palm Sunday, aren't we? I said, do you even know what Palm Sunday is about? And he said, no. And then Lisa kind of started on and said, you know, well, it's about the triumphal entry. And she started talking a little bit more about it. And it actually opened up a great conversation with the kids about what Palm Sunday really is. And I realized that as we come into this week, that a lot of people know about the day, but maybe not the entirety of what it really signifies. And what I told my kids was, you know, it's interesting if they are familiar with Martin Luther King, a pastor of the civil rights movement who really believed that all children, whether they were black or white, had the right to be able to go to the same schools and to eat in the same restaurants and to ride the same buses because of their God-given rights as an American, that they had the ability to do that, and he genuinely believed in that and fought so hard for it. And I said, but there are also people in the world that didn't agree with that, and that's why we saw what we saw when Martin Luther King was assassinated. And I said, if you pull the lens back a bit and you go back years and years before that, we come to the person of Jesus. And it was kind of this thing where it was before we really had a recognition of nations and states. There were empires that were being brought up, and anytime you have an empire, you have a dominant empire, and then you have a subordinate. You've got the ruling class that rules the world, and you've got those that are subjected to it. And at its core, Jesus genuinely really believed that those people, the ones who were in the lower class, the ones who were outsiders in society, the widows and the orphans, that they had a place too, that they didn't deserve to be ostracized and pushed aside, and that he fought for those things and that he cared deeply about them. And so every time we come to the scriptures, we see political and religious leaders of the day drawing circles in the sand and making declarations of who's inside the circle and who's outside the circle. And if you're inside the circle, then that means that you're following God's rules and law and you're good with God. And if you're outside the circle, then it means that you're outside of it and you're not doing what you're supposed to. And the interesting thing for me is that every time Jesus comes around, every parable, every prayer, every sermon that he gives is about moving the bounds of the circle. It's about saying, you thought these people were on the outside, but they are actually on the inside. And he takes the circle and he draws it larger and larger and wider and wider. And it's really interesting to me, in part because I think there's something beautiful about that. There's something really beautiful about this idea that everybody is included and welcomed. And so those people that felt ostracized and they felt rejected by the political and the religious leaders of the day, as Jesus comes into the city, they come with palm branches and they're waving them. And palm branches are a sign of victory and triumph. And it's an amazing thing because Jesus wasn't a political leader. He wasn't a religious ruler at that time. There was nothing in the system and the day that would dictate for these people that yes, that this was a moment of triumph and of victory and that this was a cause for celebration. But they showed up anyway. And they showed up waving palm branches because they believed in the things that Jesus was talking about. And they felt like this person who's advocating and standing up for us, that this is the king that we want to follow, that this is a kingdom that we want to see made real in this world. I can't help but be reminded about that, especially right now, in part because I think I know what it means. I think we all know what it means to look at the world where there doesn't really seem to be a lot of hope and a lot of optimism. It doesn't seem to look like there's time for chance of victory and triumph. And if anything else, we probably are all clustered away in corners, worried, wondering. But in the middle of all of that, in the moments when they could have clustered and worried and been silent, the people of the city came out. And they came out singing songs and cheering and waving palm branches and saying that even though it doesn't seem like it right now, even though it doesn't seem real or evident, that we are still going to declare triumph and victory and joy and mercy and grace and love and forgiveness, and we are going to celebrate those things even before we know that it's actually going to come to reality. I was really inspired this week as I went back and I saw all these different clips, and there were these beautiful clips all over the world, really, of medical professionals who are singing and dancing in their own language, in their own way. They're bringing their joyous celebration as a sign and a symptom, as a way of bringing an uplifting spirits, as an acknowledgement of the fact that we will get through this, even when it doesn't seem like it. I think this day, this Palm Sunday, probably means more than most others in years past, because I think that we understand it. I think that we get what it means to have to try in the middle of a world that doesn't seem to indicate that it really should exist, that we still show up, that we still declare that that kingdom matters, that forgiveness and hope and grace and love belongs to everyone, and that the circle of God's community is wide enough for every political party, for every gender, for every class, no matter who you are or whatever you are, that there is a place in this kingdom for you, to that God, to the God who makes the declaration that for every single man, woman, and child in the world, there is space at the table, for the God who says that the kingdom is better when we are all a part of it. To that God be all honor, glory, dominion, and power now and forevermore. Amen.
草原最美的花，火红的草儿啊，火一样热烈，火一样奔放。这今天婴儿啊，心上有了他。
हर जर्रा है मोती, आंख उठा कर देखो, माटी है सोना और हाथ बढ़ा कर देखो, सोने की ये गंगा है चांदी की यमुना, चाहे तो पत्थर से धान उगा कर देखो। Amazing grace, how sweet sound that saves a wretch like me, that once was lost but now I'm found, was blind but now I see. You are my sunshine, my only
Don't take sunshine away.